right, I think that's my cue. Hello, everybody. Thank you for making it to Friday. I know that it's been a full week, and there's been a lot of different stuff that has been going on here at Microsoft Ignite. So first of all, today's topic, as you probably have seen on the slide, and the reason why you're here, is it's entitled Unlock Innovation with Practical Strategies in Power Automate. Now, I know that that is a mouthful. There's a lot of stuff in there. There's even some power words in there. But here's the cool thing, is that if you found yourself in this room today, this session's for you. Regardless if you're in IT, if you're a business user, if you make decisions, if you don't, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about how we make the complex simple. It is something I am super, super passionate about. It's something that I think in any organization and any job that I've been in, you kind of realize that there seems to be a lot of complexity. Can any of you relate to that? Yeah, okay. So what I'm hoping to do, and I would love for you to join me on this journey today, is we're going to break this down a little bit, and we're going to take a look at Power Automate as well as Microsoft Power Platform, and it's going to look a little different than maybe other sessions that you've been in, because what we're going to do today is we are going to make, like I said, this super simple and practical. So whether you have a practice already, whether you don't know and you're like, what is this Power Automate thing? I've been learning a lot about Copilot agents and AI, and man, if I had a dime for every time we said Copilot, I'd be a rich man. We are going to get to the bottom of it and show you some very simple approaches to, there's kind of a few things to this. There's some project management. There's some ways to organize things. There's some ways to approach things, champion things, like, man, I feel like I don't have any clout or weight in my organization. Well, guess what? This is going to help show you how you can break through some of those barriers and unlock that innovation. So, a little bit about me, though. I am Jonathan Kendall, and I am a product marketing manager for Microsoft Power Platform. How many of you use any form of Power Platform? Oh, I love all the hands. So that means you've got some power there. How many of you specifically might use Power Automate? Nice, I love it. So with a little bit about this is I have worked with startups, I've worked with nonprofits, I've worked with large corporations, including one that creates some magic for their guests. And I have seen different ways on how technology and software is given to employees. As someone who's made decisions in an organization, as someone who was just told what to do and kind of went about it, and I'm like, okay, I'm just trying to do my job as just a normal business user, reporting up to my manager. You kind of experience some different things. And we're going to get to that in a few minutes, but Power Platform is such a powerful suite of products. It is an AI-powered low-code development platform, has a whole bunch of different tools, and this is how I like to describe Power Platform. Power Platform, so first of all, we always have data. We always have data, and we have a place where we store that data. So when you're in your organization, you might be working in a bunch of different line of business systems, data might be in all these different places. But then you also have those methods of where you're creating that data. So if you're a Microsoft E3, E5 user, or just a business user, or so on and so forth, your employees are making documents, there's making Excel spreadsheets, they're doing a whole bunch of different things. And some places live in OneDrive maybe, some places might live in some other storage locations, and then as a team you might be working in SharePoint. But it's great that those things can get stored there, but it's like, how can you maybe streamline what you do with that data? And that's where Power Platform comes in. It is that middle layer. It's that layer that allows you to actually transform the way you work, streamline the way you operate, increase productivity, and it's for pro developers, makes it easier for them. It's for just normal business users who are trying to do different, maybe personal tasks, or like, hey, I have a team process that I want to improve. It's for anybody. We make it user-friendly and efficient, especially now that Copilot is getting integrated into so many of these different experiences. We are entering a new frontier for productivity, collaboration, and innovation. Now, my journey with Power Platform started some years ago. How many of you remember when Power Automate was called Microsoft Flow? Do we have any OGs? Nice. So I was at a company, and I was doing my job, and I saw just a process that we were doing as a team. I had a small team, about 20 people, and I was frustrated. And it made me a little upset and mad because obviously I'm trying to carry out my work, and there was things that would get sent to email, and this company had an on-premise solution, but then they were also using a cloud solution with Microsoft. Things were stored in all these different places. Some people chose the on-premise, some people chose the cloud, and there wasn't a unification. And so I found myself as just a normal business user trying to do my job. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to lose my job. I want to do it the best of my ability. And I got frustrated. So guess what I started to do? I knew we had a Microsoft license. I just started clicking around. I'm one of those people who, if I'm like, okay, I want to find a solution for something, I'm just going to see what do I have? Like, what tools do I have? And as I started clicking around, that is when I stumbled upon Microsoft Flow. And it changed my life forever in that moment. I started thinking, oh my goodness, there's all these emails getting sent to me. I can then, wow, when an email comes in, I can have it then trigger, go into a SharePoint list. I can have it store that stuff in there, and then I can do an approval for like my manager and then my team to decide where do we go from here. Whoa. At the same time, I discovered Microsoft Teams, and I'm like, look at this collaboration. This is amazing. It comes with the SharePoint site. My mind started to go, and it got me excited. You see, because I felt stuck, I felt frustrated, but I finally was like, oh my goodness, there is a possible solution. So as I'm clicking around, I'm realizing, wow, I have access. I have access to this. This is cool. Why? This is important. Why did I not hear about this during training or onboarding? It's there, but why didn't I hear about it? So I'm trying to do my thing, trying to make things, get things going and stuff, and I'm making my flow, and I'm like, this is amazing. But then I hit a stumbling block, and I wonder how many of you can relate with this. I started making the flow, and then I realized I didn't have permissions for one of the connectors. If you don't know, with Power Automate, it's a bunch of connectors. They're API connectors, and they're connecting to all these services and data systems. And I got stuck again. My hopes were up here. I finally was like, oh my goodness, I'm about to solve this. And then, boom, it crashed down again. So I talked to my manager. They didn't know what to do. Tried getting to IT. Couldn't really get a hold of them. And then I found myself at a point where I was in a bunch of sorrow. And I felt like there was no hope. I found this cool thing, but I can't unlock this to solve my urgent need right now. And you know, with Power Platform, we've got an amazing suite of products for it. And I know a lot of you raised your hands and you are very familiar. You know, we've got Power Automate, which was Flow, and that's where you create automations. You've got Power Apps to build, custom apps for your organization. We've got Power Pages for external-facing business websites. We've got Power BI, which is kind of the one that started it all, where it's for business insights, intelligence, all that great stuff. And then, with Copilot Studio, now being able to create your own custom Copilot, and now with that awesomeness of agents, you're able to do even more and train those things. There's so much power in that. And I know it sounds a little corny, but really that's why it's Power Platform, because you have the power. But what I discovered for myself in that circumstance, and I'm not sure if any of you can relate with this, I saw some heads nod as I was telling that story, which it's like, why do we get stuck? Is at first, we start with kind of a thing, and this is true for you, and it's true for people in your organization, because here's the thing. We spend most of our time at work. Work is a huge part of our life. So we want to make it as efficient as possible. And so with us and the people in your organization, you might think I'm frustrated with a problem. Then you're like, okay, wait, there's a problem. I'm going to try to find a way to solve it. Let me see here. Let me see what's available. Let me click around. What does my company have? But then you often may find yourself, if there isn't an established process, if there hasn't been an ushering of like a center of excellence, you might have heard that term before, or other things within your organization, you get stuck, and then you don't know what to do. And then what this does is it creates this vicious cycle where it just repeats over and over again. And instead of reaching new heights, instead of getting over that challenge, we're stuck. And we don't know who to talk to. We don't know how to engage with IT. And if you're in IT, you know there might be some worry there about, well, what about the security? How am I going to manage this? And stuff like that. And we're going to get to, very shortly, a way on how both IT and normal business users can work together and come together, regardless of where you are and who you are, to unlock this innovation for Power Automate and the rest of Power Platform. Now, our mission at Microsoft, and I love this, our mission is to empower every single person and organization on the planet to achieve more. And I know we've all heard this during the week in different sessions. We saw it plastered in the hub, which, my goodness, that hub was huge. And there was a lot of cool stuff in there. And the thing with this mission statement is that the answer to unlocking innovation for your organization is to empower every person. That is the answer. Because when you empower every person, what you're doing is you're taking the software, the technology, the process out of the whole equation, and now you're making it human. You're making it to where you're meeting people where they're at, and you're seeing them right where they are and realizing, you know what, I know you have a job to do, but I also know you have a life outside of this too. And I know, because I know, that when I'm doing my job and if I get stuck or if I feel frustrated, you lose energy. You lose that excitement. You lose that ability to honestly maybe function sometimes because you kind of feel depleted and down because you find yourself stuck in that cycle of just frustration. But the good news is that there's a way out of that. There's a way out of that for you and your organization. Now, how we go about doing this and unlocking this innovation is there's a way here, there's like a three kind of step approach that we'll kind of take, where first of all, the important note is you want to guide your people. Oftentimes, like I mentioned, you get stuck. You don't know. And when people have questions and then they start doubting and then they're like, I don't know where to go to, what if there was a way where you told them already? When they had these questions, when they had these concerns, when they had these doubts, or they wanted to learn some of these solutions, what if you just showed them and told them, and there was a place for that? The second thing is, what if you gave them tools? What if you empowered them with the tools to use, and there's a way to do it with IT, or if you're a normal business user, where you set up those right securities, and there's some other sessions that you can check on about managed environments and a center of excellence, where there's ways where you can empower people while keeping your data still protected. You're allowing them to build and build. And that brings it to the third point. You let them build. It's funny, in the organizations I've been in, we weren't really told of all the software we had, the tools we had, and again, I clicked around and I found it. But what if we actually did some enablement and told them what they had the power to do with these tools to make their life better, But maybe what could that do if it sparked some ideas to maybe scale that up? You see, there's a few different ways on how people kind of want to improve the way they work. The first is personal. You have somebody who's like, I want to do this task a little faster. And there's a few different ways on how that can get looked at. Like maybe they're like, I keep getting these emails. Is there a way where I can maybe move these emails to some other place and then, or filter out the right ones, And I know there's conditional, rules and stuff like that exist, but there's a bunch of different other ways that you could use automation for personal tasks. The other thing is for a team. I want my team's process to be better. That was something that I found myself in, is there was a task that my team was doing, and I'm like, I see an opportunity. And my brain just thinks that way, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we can improve this, and then it helps the whole team, and you're amplifying then what's possible. And then the third one is an organization-wide process. I want this multi-team process to be better. And I know in the previous slide we talked about letting people build. I want to give you a quick little analogy where, we have people who build houses. And there's always a foundation. You establish the foundation, and honestly, a lot of the times the foundation there is like IT, like within an organization. They're the ones who are making sure things are operating securely, like with the data in this digital age. And how I view the building process really comes to empowering the people within. While there might be walls that are built up already, like for the framing and everything like that, you have people who come in and they're, customizing their desk, they might be painting this room or that room, or maybe they're thinking of a route, like maybe with some barriers or some cones, to get you from one point to another, depending what office setting you're in. And they're contributing to that foundation within the organization. And the same thing with the car, you build a framework for the car, and then there's all these other components, but people can then customize their car. They can customize their vehicle and their components and everything like that. What if we did the same thing for the way we work with software and products? What if we empowered people with tools so they could create some very pragmatic, simple things that make their life better, and then from there, it could scale up from personal to team to organization. Now, we're about to get to the real reason, and the reason why you're here, and it's the key to unlocking all of this. In order for all of this to work, we need to centralize innovation. And what do I mean by that? What if I told you there was a simple, easy way within your organization, for you as a team or whatnot, where you created maybe something like a innovation hub, we'll just call it that. And this innovation hub, it lives right on your, through your company's portal and, your internal landing page, and it branches off to there, but it's in partnership with a bunch of different people who want to champion innovation. And you've got a QA team that's associated with it. The QA team would be another term, like it's like a core team of people who make up, keeping this thing going. You've got some policies and procedures that help you, with executing this, and IT is a part of this. And then it's full of things, like as you can see on the right side, you've got submitting in ideas, getting inspired by others, leveraging templates, accessing info and resources. All of this converging into one spot as part of the onboarding and on part of your training. So you're meeting people directly where they're at and communicating what to do when they don't know what to do. And you're fostering that creation, that amazing creation that can happen where people are building on new ideas and building off each other, and the whole organization benefits. And it's secure, it's safe, because it's all just it's a funnel. It's a way to execute the innovation. So with those 4 things that were on the side, here's an example of with sharing ideas. You can as easily, this is so pragmatic, it's so simple. Use a Microsoft form that goes to an email group and connect your process using Power Automate. So when a new form gets submitted, you have an automation that flows, and then it alerts all the right folks on your team, and then it does like a weighted like check and balance to see and also notice trends if you integrate that even with Power BI. And I'll show you some examples of some of these things too in a few moments. But if you had a spot on your page where you allowed people to share ideas with you, like, hey, I have this process, like we could really do this, or this to it, like have we thought about making this better? It then gets reviewed, and then now it's not just what do I do, you're hearing from the people in your organization who are front and center and experiencing these bottlenecks. Imagine if you gave a way where they could voice it and you had a team that will help partner with them to solve it. The other thing is you can get inspired. So as other processes are getting streamlined using Power Platform and all the different tools that are out there, and maybe if there's like a certain finance process, an invoice document processing process, man, a lot of time saying process. There could be so many different examples of all these different things that your organization is doing and different teams are doing. Imagine if they shared that to the Innovation Hub. Imagine if there was a list, searchable, maybe you train a new agent to kind of use it as a reference point and search and stuff like that and ask questions about it, and people are able to get inspired of how can I improve my process? Well, let me describe it, let me explain it, and then let me see what others have done. And then it continues to spark and show use cases within your organization of what's possible, and you're bringing people along on the journey to say, wow, that person did this. And then it spotlights the heroes, those champions in your organization. The other thing that the Innovation Hub can do is it can educate users. It can educate users about the team, processes, who to contact, the tools available, and what to do if they need help. Because no one likes to feel stuck. No one likes to feel like they don't know what to even do with the stuff that they're given. So if you can give a page where you give guidance about the software, and I'll show you an example here in a moment, it can unlock so much for you and your organization. And then lastly, the other thing, which this would be in partnership with IT, is we do have a Power Platform catalog. And the Power Platform catalog was released to where now IT can manage within the organization the sharing and approval of what other things people have done to improve processes. So if somebody is in, they're like, oh, I wonder what other things are there for like automations or like for an app or custom app for Power Apps and that sort of stuff. You can then go through while you're in the experience in Power Platform, access that catalog, and then you can actually then it's basically custom templates for your organization versus like the broad ones that you'll find available within the product. So that's another way to quickly grant access to the right folks. So with that said, those are 4 things. 4 key things, but let me go ahead and let me show you a little bit about what I am talking about so you can see it a little in action. Boom. All right. So let's just pretend that we work at Contoso Electronics. Wow, very popular organization that seems to be around Microsoft a lot. And as an employee, I go to the landing. Now, the landing, it's built on a SharePoint website, and on the landing, this is like their internal company page. This is where we go to get to everything, and I'm just an employee, and I'm looking, and I'm like, great, this is where I go. It's how I start my day. It's the default homepage for any device that I'm on. Look at that. And when I'm on here, a part of this Innovation Hub is you plug it in directly into where your employees go. And so if I was to go here, oh, look at that, become an innovation champion and improve the way you and others work with Power Platform. The other thing is up here under Find It, under Tech Help, you see something called Innovation Hub. Now, if I clicked on either of these, what would happen is now it just takes you to a very basic SharePoint page. And if this seems simple, it's because it is. All we're doing is wherever your employees work, we're making a single spot where they know to go if they have an idea, if they have a thing that they want to do, or if they want to learn more about software, they can go here. And as you can see here, right on this landing page, it says, hey, we're thrilled to have you here. This is your go-to space to share out your ideas, Learn new techniques and discover ways to boost your energy and productivity. By coming together, we can harness the power of collaboration and creativity to transform how we work. Dive in, explore, and let's make every day more innovative and inspiring with Microsoft Power Platform. And so, right off the bat, we're explaining what it is, and then right here, we've got some links to some different spots. The first is we have an About Us. The About Us just will take you to a page that explains like, hey, who's on the team? What is it that we do? Why would you even come here? And then who do you reach out to if you have any other questions? Very basic. The other thing is with accessing resources, where people can learn more about the available products, software, and tools that are available. And so if I was to click this, one of the things that I did, and this is just a very rough example, but one of the things is I just leveraged a SharePoint list, which you can always use if you wanted to build a custom Power App. You can reference a list like this and make it more visually appealing if you wanted to have a more dynamic experience. But imagine if you just kind of listed all the different software and products, and then you had, this is how you access the product. This is like the expert, like the owner of who kind of drives this product. Here's the training information, which this goes right to Microsoft, and here's the documentation, which goes right to Microsoft. So now we have a place where we can see what's all available and actually give guidance and structure. But you can always make this fit for what you think is best for your organization. Using a list is just one example. Another alternative is if you were to create a Copilot agent. And if you wanted to reference the data over in like a Word document or Excel or something like that and have all that info in there, you can then customize a Copilot agent to then read off of that source and then say, all right, if somebody asks a question about what software does X, Y, and Z, boom, pops it up and pulls it right up. Now, the other aspect here is being inspired. So see how others have made other things better in the organization. If I open this up, as you can see, this is a list as well. I'm a huge fan of SharePoint lists because especially with Power Automate, you can do a lot of different automations and triggers for different things relating to the list and adding things to the list. But here's where you can capture who did what. And again, you can create, if you wanted to, a Power App or even do a Copilot agent that can reference some of this information, depending how you store it in a SharePoint list or an Excel or a Word document like I mentioned, where you just keep a repository of what is this solution for this area. And then you can even do custom filters, like even up here, you can add a new view and you can make it where it's like, okay, let me just filter by a certain department or that sort of thing and make a search for the list. And, and anything with this thing, you can then have a link that goes to the resources area, where in the resources area, as you can see in our back end, if we had a folder in our back end called process resources and then we numbered each one, in there, you could then have maybe the diagram of the process. You could have the link directly to like the flow that was used, the app that was used. So you can actually bring guidance here for how people can leverage this stuff. Now, the other thing here is like sharing ideas. I mean, this one is super easy. Like, what if somebody is stuck or they have an idea to improve a certain process? If they click this link, it's just a simple Microsoft form. From there, it goes to an inbox, and then it can route specifically. Like if we wanted to do a Microsoft Power Automate flow to where we had it sent to a specific person based on like a criteria, we could customize that in Power Automate to be able to route to the right folks and for them to see, and it goes right to their specific inbox. And then it gets stored in the back end, and I'll show you where it gets stored in a second. The other thing is if they want to request support, so if they have questions, this will go to another form as well where it divides it and makes it easy to where it's like, hey, if you have a question or want help on how to improve your work, they can go there. And then the other thing is getting involved. So a part of this structure is you have like your core team, and I'll show you an example here in a second, but then you also can have this group of people in your organization that may be innovation champions. And these people are people who may not be a part of the official team, but they're like, oh my goodness, I am so excited about building solutions. I'm so excited about improving things, and I want to be a part. But I don't necessarily want to be a part of the official team, or I can't, but I want to be a part, and I want to be involved. So that's where you can unlock this part of becoming an innovation champion, because then you can have specific things with them to kind of evangelize and foster stuff within your organization to be able to capture those even ideas and even bounce stuff off of them as well, get feedback, all that stuff. And as you can see here on this page down here, front and center, hey, become a champion. Are you passionate about fixing what's broken and finding new ways to make things better? Become an innovation champion and join us on this exciting journey. So they can go here, it goes to a new form, it goes to either an info page. You know, you make this how you think it makes sense for you. Now, I know that was a lot, and I know that this is just a single SharePoint page, but what I'm trying to show today is just some very practical strategies on how to unlock innovation. And I'm going to get to the Power Automate piece here in a second a little bit more. But really a lot of the times, I think when we are given software and we're given products and we're given things that might feel a little uneasy, I think a few things kind of happen. We have IT. If we're in IT, we might think, oh my gosh, this is going to add a lot more on my plate. Or, okay, how am I going to secure this? What am I going to do? I already have so many different things going on. I don't know when we can prioritize this. And if that is the case, the beautiful part of this is if we simplify it, like an approach like this, and IT is part of this team to help vet and inform and give guidance, then with IT, and for those of us in the room who are just normal business users or not necessarily in IT, we can partner together. We can come together in sort of like a QA kind of process to help gatekeep, all right, where do we go from here? What do we do with these ideas? How do we manage the catalog? It all just makes sense because we're coming together as one team and one mission, which is to make people empowered with the tools that we're already paying for and what you already have access to. So now in the back end here, I'm going to show you just a couple things, and I will get to this. So managing this, it can look a few different ways, and I'm not sure if you've seen the new SharePoint structure and updates that they've done for the cloud SharePoint, but you know, it's been pretty cool, and I've gotten really excited about it. I've actually used this from like my marketing team a bit, and we've done some of this stuff with the columns. Like right here, you can bring custom columns to organizing with project management and keeping track of like how things are set up and even statuses. It makes it really cool to where you're putting this in the flow of work. And so what I've done here to kind of manage this team, like let's just pretend right now I'm kind of the project manager, liaison person for the Innovation Hub. I've just made an archive folder where I can shove everything in there that might get old. I always like to have those things just in case. I have a spot here for software and products, where from here, I started making a software and products agent that'll reference the guide here, and it's still a work in progress, but here's an example of how you can bring things together to better keep your sanity instead of, oh my gosh, I have to remember to go here, here, and here. You can bring it all here by using the links and stuff like that. So for the list that I made for the software and products list, I put the link right in the folder so that way I know everything I need to manage and get to is in here. The software and products document that I was using for the Copilot agent, I started building it out in here. So like if I wanted the agent to pull off of this document and reference it if people were asking questions, I then just kind of format it with the right titles and headings and things like that, so that way it could reference all that stuff appropriately. And then for ideas and inspiration, here's where I have that shared ideas list, so that way I know, okay, here's where I'm working. I have the link there. It's in that flow of work. And then in the inspiration folder, this is where I link to the repository list of all the processes, but then I have process resources, which is where I'm storing all the stuff for all the different processes that have been submitted. So like again, for automate invoice approvals in here, if I had like, here's an example of the flow, here's the link to where you can access it in the catalog and that sort of thing, I'd reference it in here so that way I could manage it all within this document library. And then the last thing here is in the admin folder, I have a few things, and this is where I'm going to talk very simply about Power Automate and how you can track all the different flows that are kind of going on, especially if you don't have a view in the admin center for Power Platform and whatnot. But in the admin folder, I do have a help and support area that I have the link that goes right to the contact form that I made, so I can track and see all the responses in there. And then I have here a very basic, simple kind of walking presentation that I use to kind of keep up with my team. And so what I've done in here is I say, hey, this is Innovation Hub where we work smarter, we reach higher. And then underneath here, I just kind of say what our mission is. Our mission is to empower others to achieve more with software products and solutions that help them work smarter so they can reach higher. I have a resources thing that's just a simple rundown of like where we work, so I have a link to our team workspace. And then I just have a slide that captures all the different members of our team. So, okay, I have IT admin, I have who that person's gonna be the lead, and then you can fill out their responsibilities on the side, who's gonna be over the innovation champions in finance, legal, HR, ops, sales, engineering, so on and so forth. So it doesn't have to be a huge group, but if you can get strategic people who wanna be the representative for each of these areas, bring them in, especially with IT, because IT is the big partner here. You're all coming together and you're keeping track of who's part of the team. Then you can establish meetings like, if you had a weekly meeting as a core team, so it's nothing crazy. It's not, oh my goodness, how much more work is this going to be? You just have those weekly meetings to make that happen and just do the check-ins, like review the current rhythm, requests, and support tickets. And then we just kind of have a diagram of like how this works. So hey, these are the 4 core areas, which we talked about earlier. This is the core team across it all. It all funnels up into the Innovation Hub. But this next part is something that goes hand in hand with managing some of the stuff with the flows you create, especially in Power Automate. Because we talk about process, we talk about ways of, oh yeah, talking about it sounds good, like you can improve this and improve that, but how do we visually represent it so that way I remember what flow is part of which process, what app might I have made, what list, like how do I make sure I know that this is part of the process so I can keep track on it. So the thing that I did down here is you make a little section where you can just map out the different processes and the process maps. So you just have a start and an end, and you just kind of walk it through like a storyboard. But from here, when you do each step, you then up here can then mark, okay, there's a form associated with this and there's a list associated with this, like a SharePoint list. And what I can then do is I can link directly to that so I know when I'm looking at this and taking a look to make sure things are working right and stuff like that, I can then go here and be like, boom, this is the list. Is there anything we need to improve? Is there anything we need to fix? The same thing here for a submission being reviewed for the idea submission. There's going to be an automation associated with this. So then I can make a link that goes to reference what that automation is, and I'll show you where I'm storing that in a second, as well as, okay, there's a meeting associated with this. So then I'll link and reference what is that meeting so I know, okay, this is how we're making sure and this is how it's getting reviewed, that sort of thing. And then those are just a couple examples there, but as you continue to go through the flow, you contact the submitter, decide next steps, finalize details, you approve the final idea, you then add to the inspiration list, so then from here, we'll link that to the inspiration list. And then, there's gonna be an automation sent there, and then a communication sent out. So for this scenario, what I've actually done is once an idea comes in, and when there is a automation, once a thing gets sent in and it's approved, you can set up a Power Automate flow that then triggers once you mark it as approved, it then will then send a notification out, sort of like a newsletter to everybody in the company to say, hey, once it's added to that inspiration list, a new solution has been added. So you don't have to write an email, you don't have to draft anything crazy, it's just an automatic alert that you've used with Power Automate. And so the last thing I'll show you here is keeping track of flows. I just made a list that kind of keeps me tame to know what flows have I created for like which processes and for what things. So that way it just helps me better organize my thoughts and my ability to be able to track all the different things that might exist. So for example, that flow that I just showed you, I marked it in here, send a customized email when a new SharePoint list item is added. I write the flow ID that's in here, who's the owner, what's the purpose of it, and then what process is it part of. So with that, I have a way between publicly showing the the stuff on the front end on the Innovation Hub and then here on the back end. I have a way in this document library to manage everything and keeping it all together no matter where things live. So, only have about a minute or so left. I know that was a lot of information, and the reason why in this session we did not really go and do a full-on demo with this is how you create a flow and stuff like that is because there's quite a couple other sessions that I'll show you in a second that you can do on demand that actually walk into that and break it down. My goal today, and I hope you have something that you can leave with, is to just show you how to make that complexity so simple and get people to create and foster a culture of innovation in your organization. And it's as simple as something just like this. So, how can you bring this innovation to life now that you are leaving here? First, if you're a business user, you can share this session with your manager and IT team. There's going to be the materials and stuff on demand probably within, 24, 48 hours, but because it's a weekend, it might be live on Monday. So you can share this with them and share what you've learned. And then you can express your interest in getting involved in these innovation efforts and really kind of show them what's possible and how simple this can be, and then how IT can come in as well with the Center of Excellence and building the Power Platform Catalog. All we need to do is make it simple. Now, if you're an IT admin, you can bring these strategies back to your organization, align with key stakeholders, and start laying the groundwork for innovation. Because if you're IT in this room, your approach, your mantra now, is a very clear call and very straightforward. Now, the other thing too is here's just some things to keep in mind. I'm not going to read through the whole list, so you're more than welcome to take a screenshot of this Innovation Hub checklist. But here are some things just to be keeping in mind as you're building it out, as you're thinking, how do I approach this and what do I do? Creating a shared workspace, I'll just name a couple, building your innovation team, giving them access. There's just some very basic things on what you can do with this. And the last thing here is if you want to dive more into then, once you have this simple process, this concept here with, how do you use this stuff, take a look at these sessions that have already happened and that you can see them on demand on the website. And there's really great ones, like to how you can actually use the latest stuff in Power Automate to take your processes to the next level, and so on and so forth. So, with that said, I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a safe trip back to wherever you're going home to. We really appreciate your thoughts about all of our sessions and the surveys. And yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.